I am told we are now live.
And we are live.
Okay. So I'm going to call this Social Services Committee meeting to order for June 8th, 2022. It's a hybrid meeting with pretty equal attendance in person and online, which is great to see. The roll call I go through right now, the attendance has been noted by the clerk. We are full, which is great. Just going to read off the rules of procedure as we do every meeting. Just like to remind members of council, staff, and our viewing public of the electronic participation policy for hybrid meetings. For staff and delegates joining electronically, please keep your video and microphones off until requested by the chair or members of council or committee. All rules for delegations under the city's procedural bylaw continue to apply. The full corporate policy number 50 regarding virtual participation in meetings is available online for your review. And in the event of a connection service interruption that affects quorum of the committee as a whole, we will recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is unachieved, the meeting will be adjourned and we will postpone the items that were on the agenda. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? No. So we'll move on to number 3, the separation of items for consideration. Now, the following is going to be automatically separated as we have 3 delegates presenting today on the Live Well Brantford Brant program. But are there any other items the committee wishes to separate at this time? Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to separate the Ontario Works report for discussion, please.
Is that 6.4?
Yes.
Noted. Can I get a mover and a seconder for all other items? Councillor Vanderstelt and Councillor Antosky. Okay, I'll now call the vote on all items separated. And that carries unanimously. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, members of the committee, there are 3 delegations today and they're all in person, which is very exciting. So I would like to ask Taylor Hitchon to come forward to the delegate table to speak to item 5.1. Please note that you have up to 10 minutes for your remarks, inclusive of any questions that might be asked by committee members. Welcome.
The one on the right there.
There we go. I believe you're
okay.
Live now.
All right, thank you. All right, sorry, I wasn't expecting it to be like the first up like this. This is definitely the AM, and those are definitely the town council here. So anyways, good morning. My name is Taylor Hitchon. I'm here to let you know that what the Live Well program means to me. The Live Well program means safety and opportunity to move forward. I believe that we should never lose faith in humanity, and that love is very important, and that is what the program is all about. I feel that the cohabitative environment is a perfect learning ground to understand that change starts within. Yeah, we all need a good team to move forward, and yeah, this is sorry, I'm not sure what I was going to say here, but I think the most important thing is that it's a home base for like when there isn't one necessarily, and to have it run through the city. You guys are doing an excellent job, by the way, with Lil, Katerina, Karen, Hannah, and it's just yeah, everything's better coming from the source. So it's important that there has been some success stories, but every day is a new day, and yeah, it's just a lot better chance of reaching our goals with the team that you guys have in place right now. So yeah, not if you guys do have a say, I suppose. So yeah, if we could just stay in our hands right there now is the right hands, and my mouth is parched, And thank you.
I appreciate it. Taylor, if you could just stay there for a second. I think we do have a couple of questions. And
Yeah.
First of all, though, I want to thank you for going first. And I think some of your team members there also thank you for going first. So it's not easy, especially in a formal environment in a new room. I felt the same when I first spoke in this room, but we do have a couple of questions for you. We'll be gentle, I promise. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
No worries. Did anybody here? Mayor Davis?
Hi, Taylor. How are you doing today? A little bit nervous?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. So, yeah, I want to thank you for coming, Taylor. And can you tell us what you think it's done for you, living at the Marlene Ave facility and having available to you everything that's there? What do you think it's done for you?
As I say, it's provided like a home base. Before this, was kind of in our shelters and on the streets, and to have a roof over your head and the necessities of life taken care of.
Right.
It's just that it's gives me a foundation to, like I said, to move forward. Like,
So it's giving you a good home base, some stability.
yeah. So I'm just getting like a mental image. Like you need a foundation to move up, right? If there's nothing there, then you're just gonna sink, right? So
right.
It's a good building block, and yeah, they take good care of us. So it's
Well, it's great, Taylor, that you're on this new path. Where do you hope it leads you? Where do you hope to go?
to learn how to speak in public and not feel like this.
Well, so far you're doing okay.
But yeah, the sky's the limit. But like I said, it wouldn't be possible without these good folks. So.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks, Taylor. We do have a couple more questions.
Yeah,
if that's
sorry,
okay. You're okay to leave if you want, but
No, I totally forgot my. Sorry, go
that's okay. That's okay. So we have Councillor Antosky, then Councillor Sluss, then Councillor Miller, if we have the time. But we'll start with Councillor Antosky.
Good morning, Taylor. We've worked together in the garden at Marlene Ave.
Yeah, I recall. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks.
So great to see you. I'm wondering, so you've talked about, the base, having a roof and all of those things. What about the other services? Like, are there other services? We call them wraparound services, right? Are there other services that are helping you, so that you can take the next step and that life is easier beyond Marlene Avenue once you move on from there?
Yeah, absolutely. The new detox / treatment center that on Gray Street, I believe it is. It is somewhere I plan on attending in the future.
And do people ever come in like to Marlene Ave
Oh, absolutely, yes. There's medical services. There's like arts and crafts. There's just people from the community come in to speak to, like yourself, come in and help us with the garden. So it's totally like a communal effort, for sure.
Thanks for coming, Taylor. I hope to see you out at the garden.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Excellent. Councillor Sluss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Taylor, for coming. You might be nervous, but you did a very good job of, I think, making your case. So thanks a lot. It's good to hear from right from the horse's mouth, and it's really appreciated, Taylor.
Appreciate it.
The one question I had for you, is there anything that you think would make the program even better? Is there anything that we're missing that you would notice being a resident at Marlene?
I don't think so. No, they're there to support, right? And we all have our own free will, and whichever way we're going, they're there to pick us up. So nothing that I can think of. Sorry.
Okay, well that's good to hear, Taylor. And again, thank you. I think you hearing your story gives us faith in knowing that we're doing hopefully the right thing to help folks achieve the most that they can achieve. So thanks for what you're doing. Good luck. Carry on with moving forward, and we wish you all the luck in the world. So
Thank you, everyone as well. Appreciate it.
And Councillor Miller.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you to Taylor. Taylor, kind of the same question Councillor Celeste asked, because we're learning too, right? We're not perfect. This is all new to us. Marlene Ave is new. For example, we learned that maybe having security 24/7 might be a good idea. And I'm reading the comments from some of the people that live there about how to make it better. One of them said maybe have permanent workers, right? Rather than the tenant support coordinators switching out all the time. So the question that Councillor Celeste asked you, we'll leave it at that. But for the other two delegates too, maybe if they could speak to anything that they think we could do better, because like I say, we are learning and we want to do as good a job as possible. So I'll leave it at that. But like I say,
Sorry. I think you said it yourself. Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Consistency is key, right? So yeah, I think whoever said that about having the same staff for as long as possible and building that foundation, that's a good point. So
Okay.
just to know stability, that's it.
okay. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, sir. Dave.
So it's okay. I interrupt Councillor Miller all the time. It's okay. One of the things that just if this sounds correct, that Marlene Ave being a stable place has been really helpful, and keeping it stable is something we can all help to do. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in your hands is the most stable governing body that
Okay, no, I really appreciate that. Now, I didn't tell you this when you first came up because I didn't want to freak you out, but not only did you do a great job, not only did you go the full 10 minutes, which is great. I know it probably feels like an hour for you, but you're actually the first community member to ever speak at this committee. So you weren't just first today, you were first since this committee's formed. So thank you so much, Taylor, for speaking to us today. Also, if you do think of something, and this goes for anybody here, if you do think of something to improve the place, and you don't want to come to committee to talk about it, there's staff, absolutely, but I believe Councillor Wall is your councillor, and maybe he'll give a wave right now. So you can reach out to him as well and let him know any ideas you have, and he'll bring them back to this committee too. So it can be a phone call instead of coming to committee, but I really appreciate you coming out today and helping us get a better sense of what goes on from the service user point of view.
My office is always open to Councillor LaFerrier.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
And sorry for taking that coveted first spot there.
No, that's great. That's great. Well done, Taylor. Next, we'll ask Nathan Crooker to come forward to the delegates table to speak to item 5.1. Again, 10 minutes for your remarks, inclusive of the questions of committee members.
Okay. All right, hi there, everybody. As you said, my name is Nathan Crooker. I wanted to thank you guys just for having us here. This is great. Just to be able to speak on my own personal upheavals in this building. It's a great opportunity. So thanks again, eh? Okay, so I just wanted to speak to you guys today about the building in 5 Marlene. Obviously, it's not only changed my life dramatically, but how it's improved my way of life, my way of thinking about life, my way of handling life, and I have to say everything in between. I now have a very positive relationship with my staff. It took a little bit of time to build, but now that it is built and solidified, as they'd said, it gives very positive interactions. I love everything so far that is given to us at the building, such as the garden, barbecue, the picnic area, everything that they've been doing and bringing together and bringing our community together. It's been absolutely great. But that's just like the communal side. I am an addict, okay, and I was on the streets for about 6 years. I'm now off the streets 2 years. I'm cleaner than I've ever been. I'm doing excellent in that sense. It's just like straight up to these ladies here. They're awesome. I have to give my heart out to them because they've worked so hard to pick up the slack where it's been lacking. I want to say, like, obviously the affordable housing is nice, right? And my rent has been great. Okay. It's very affordable. I'm on disability. So it kind of, it fits right into my budget. But not only that, it makes it very easy for me to do the things that I need to do. RAM comes every week. My medications are brought there Monday to Friday. So I only have to go to methadone 2 days a week instead of 7 days a week, which saves me huge back and forth. It saves me on cabs for disability, everything. Okay. For them to get qualifications to do this has helped my addictions like night and day. Okay. I now wake up in the morning, I go downstairs, I get my medications, I shoot shit with them for a little bit, pardon my French. And honestly, every morning I usually have a great conversation with one of the ladies that are working, whether it be Hannah, anybody, okay? Hannah is my personal support worker. Her and I have tackled almost every problem imaginable in this rental type situation. And that goes with my addictions and my mental health. They've tried their best to help in all facets of my life. Sorry. Hannah has proven to me that she has knowledge of a lot of topics on the fly, and like we've kind of pushed through a lot of heavy duty topics. She's helped me down off the anger ledge kind of a couple of times, because don't get me wrong, you're not going to have a great experience living anywhere all the time, right? Like you're going to rub shoulders with a couple of people, maybe the wrong way, you never know. But you know what? She's taught me how to deal with my anger, how to properly express it. So that way, like I'm not damaging myself, my progress, or my habitation, right? So I want to say, like, she's knowledgeable, she's nice, she's polite, she's respectable. We have a great worker-workee relationship, but it's not just Hannah that I have a good relationship with. It's all the workers and the security, because we do have 24-hour security. Now that the security has come together and they're not changing all the time, now that the workers aren't changing all the time, I'm finally able to actually build relationships with these people. And when you do so, they get to know you, you get to know them. And it makes for a much more enjoyable living situation. So I put forth quite a bit of effort as well as them to bring myself to this point. But I wanted to say, like, it's not just my effort that's noticed; it's theirs. It's security's. It's Rams. It's my doctors. Everything working together has honestly made my quality of life. There's not even a scale to recognize it on. Okay, from being homeless for that long to this, like there's honestly no comparable scale. Okay. So believe me, it's difficult getting along with everybody. But you expect that sometimes, right? I mean, we all go through bad times, but here is not just a place about going through your bad times. It's about trying to go through them and move forward. Okay. Everybody that moves in, they're pretty much in the same space, homeless, going through some of the roughest times of their life. All right. And then you get off the street and you get in here, and honestly, they make the transition as painless as possible. So everything that they've done so far and everything, it's just been an absolute godsend. Yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say.
No, really appreciate it. Sounds like we should have Hannah come in when we have conflict on council. It's just gonna
You never know. She could do well.
So is any questions in person before we get to the online? Okay, Mayor Bailey, you have some questions.
Okay. Where am I looking here?
It's really not it's more of a comment.
Okay.
We as councils, both the county and the city, put programs out all the time. We spend a lot of money on things we don't know whether they're good, whether they're bad, whether they took, whether they were worthwhile. And thank you for coming and speaking to us today, because I now know, because I'm listening to you and the man that spoke before you, and this is obviously something that we've done right. I'm very happy for you that you are off the street and that you're doing well. And I'd like to thank everyone who put this together. Marlene Ave was an experiment, And it was obviously experiment with the services surrounding it, and it's working. So congratulations on you being there and being well and feeling better. And good luck with the days and the years to come.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I do have a quick question, if that's all right.
Sure.
Yeah. So you said you had been homeless for 6 years. Was that locally?
I was, my ex-girlfriend and I were homeless in Simcoe for 2 years. And there was at that time, there was absolutely no programs or there nothing. So we decided to come to Brantford. I mean, not necessarily decided, more or less was forced to by said governments in Simcoe. It was such a small town. I'm going to be honest with you, okay? Panhandling has been a bit of an epidemic that's happened. And my girlfriend and I were one of the first 2 people to ever panhandle in Norfolk County. So we kind of became one of the most famous homeless couples on Facebook and social media for a while there, not in a good way. So I'm very glad that actually, now that I speak upon it, she is my ex-girlfriend and she lives in the same building, okay, downstairs. We cohabitate as exes, living upstairs and downstairs. And we've now gotten over our problems and our friends, okay? So for us to be able to do that in that scenario, it was very hard. And I didn't think it was going to work, but it has, and it's worked great. So I kind of lost.
No, it's okay. I appreciate that. But what I was trying to get at was, so in those 6 years, when you were in Simcoe, maybe you weren't able to access services because they weren't there as much.
Yeah.
But in that time being homeless, you were likely sometimes having police contact,
Yep.
Hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that since you've been more stable at Marlene Ave,
Yep.
you're not utilizing those emergency services that are very expensive for us to run.
No, I'm barely utilizing those at all.
Yeah.
It went from having run-ins with them all the time to almost never, right? That's kind of the answer you were looking for, yeah?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to hear, because that's because, we'll have constituents say, oh, this is expensive. And but what's the alternative? And not only is the alternative sometimes more emotionally and morally expensive, but it's also sometimes more costly as well in terms of finances. So we have to make the case to other folks that this is a good investment. It sounds like it really is from your point of view.
It is. Honestly, if it wasn't for these people and this place, I don't even know where my life would be. And I am grateful on a daily basis just to be involved and to be a bit of a poster child for it. If you would talk to me 4 years ago till now, I wouldn't have thought that I'd be here today talking to you guys, to be honest, right? And this is like a first time for me and in my entire life, right? And I'm glad that they asked me to come and speak to you guys. I don't have a problem speaking in public. You guys probably noticed, so that's why I came today. I wanted to make sure that you guys knew what was going on, but at the same time, how invaluable these team members are to us. Okay, that was kind of the last thing I wanted to.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. You said you were grateful. We're grateful for all of you coming in today to speak to us. So thanks so much.
No problem.
Okay, now we'll ask Courtney Eastman to come forward to the delegates table to speak to item 5.1. And again, 10 minutes for remarks inclusive of questions if there are any.
Hi, I'm Courtney. Good, how are you? So yeah, basically Nate and Taylor put it in a nutshell. But 5 Marlene Ave has been a lot for me too. Up to there, I spent a lot of time in the hospital and shelters and wasn't well. I had supports, but I had to reach out and find them on my own. And since I've been at 5 Marlene Ave, they have a lot of services. They have the nurse that comes in, the nurse practitioner that comes in. They have the RAM clinic. They help us with food services, just knocking on our doors every day, making sure that we're okay. They're on top of us. Get up, you start your day fresh. You know what I mean? And before them, I was the person I'd stay in bed all day. You know what I mean? Now I get up, I have my coffee, I have my cigarette. I go and I knock on everybody's door. It's more like a family than a community, and they've come a long way with us. And a lot of people don't want to leave, you know what I mean? Because we've gotten so comfortable there, and services that they've given us are spectacular. You know what I mean? We couldn't be as far as we are without them. And like, I can't even top what Nate and Taylor said. So on top of that, you know what I mean? Hannah, Lily, Karen, Katarina, they're all great. Those two in the back corner there, they're pretty great too, but we don't see them very often. But yeah, without 5 Marlene Ave, I probably would be dead right now. I haven't been in the hospital in 2 years. I had a one slip up, but that's because I broke my foot. So other than that, I've been fine. I've been healthy. I eat, I sleep, I socialize, the garden, like, you know what I mean? I have neighbors and it's nice. It's nice to have. So, yeah, I don't think that, I can't say anymore except for thank you for giving us the opportunity to have a place to live where we're safe and we have a like family, like I said, you know what I mean? Everybody's really close. We watch each other's backs. It's sad when someone leaves, you know what I mean? But we've got to move on. It's transitional, right? And once we're ready, it's time to move on. And that's about it. But yeah.
Any questions from anybody on committee? Councillor Sluss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. You said an interesting point there, and I just wondered, the folks that you've gotten to know and they've transitioned out,
yeah,
do they stay in contact? Do you still
yeah,
interact
I've
with
noticed.
them?
Yep, they do. Actually, I just, a gentleman that moved out a couple weeks ago, he was just down the other day visiting and talking with staff. And yeah, a lot of people that leave come back and visit and just to say, hey, you know what I mean? And it's awesome. Like I said, it's not just a community. It's kind of like a family. Like you get bonds and you're so close. You know what I mean? Like you don't go a day without seeing one of your neighbors. Like you see somebody every single day, and it's usually positive. There's not very many negative experiences that we've had at Marlene Ave. You know, you don't see the police there. It's really it's awesome. It's awesome. Like it's safe. It's a safe place, and yeah, no, it's awesome. It's good.
Great.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one question for you. Is when you see folks that have transitioned out of Marlene Ave and successfully, what does that do for your mindset about when it's time for you to transition?
Well, like I want to transition myself, but it's just, I have a different idea of transitioning. Like I don't want to transition to another transitional kind of housing. I want to transition to more of my own independent. So we're working on that. No, I like it. I think it's great that people are getting to the point where they can move on and they're staying, they're keeping their stability. You know what I mean? They're even doing better because of Marlene Ave. You know what I mean? It's great. Like when we came here, we didn't have anything. They supplied us with beds, everything, food, everything. Like our apartments were stacked and you know what I mean? Now we have more things. Like, you know what I mean? We've accumulated things and we can go out and buy stuff. We can buy groceries and it's nice. It's awesome. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So
yeah, no problem.
Appreciate you explaining that to us and helping us see it a little clearly. Thank you. Okay, that was wonderful to hear. And thanks so much to all three of you and the staff for coming out today. If we have no more questions for the delegation, let's, I guess, consider the items that were separated. This one was automatically separated. So is there any discussion on 5.1 we want to have that we haven't already? I see 2 in queue online, 1 in person. Yeah, you got the privilege, use it. Mayor Davis?
Yeah, so I've got a question for staff. First of all, I want to thank you for the report. Very detailed, a lot of statistics in it. And I did read it all very carefully. And I appreciate you giving us that information. But one piece of data that I think is missing has to do with the fact that this is a community within a greater community and neighborhood. And that's an important relationship as well, to ensure that over the longer term that this program and this facility has community acceptance. Certainly part of that is the telling of the stories that we heard today. Very helpful to hear the impact it's had on the residents and improve their lives. We know that this relation, the outside relation, if I can call it that, was a bit rocky to begin with. And we made certain changes to improve the way the facility was managed and the security. And the problem I have with the data we've got is it doesn't tell me what's happening between the facility and the neighborhood. And doesn't seem that there's data regarding that. So for example, one data point could be the number of complaints or concerns raised by the surrounding neighborhood. And so has that in fact been tracked? Do we have that data?
Staff? Or can you get it for us?
So through the chair, Marlene Miranda, General Manager, Community Service Social Development. We don't have that specific data, but I understand we have two just anecdotal comments or complaints, which Mary can speak to if you wish. We'd be happy to explore that and reach out to the neighborhood and get some of that feedback for committee.
The reason why I'm interested, Marlene, is, yeah, there can be specific concerns expressed that would be helpful to know what they are. But I'm really more interested in it for the data. And in terms of trend, like a trend line, if we're receiving fewer concerns registered, then we know the relationship's improving. If we know the trend line goes the other way, then we know we've got an issue and we got to do something about it. And then also categorizing the concerns that come in, falling into certain categories. And that, I think, would assist us and also the staff in knowing what it is that needs to be focused on to improve that important relationship. So it's not, I'm really not looking for, tell me what concerns you received last week. It's more about data collection and trying to give us another useful data point that we can use. And is there anything being done in terms of the programming to facilitate that relationship, like open houses or anything like that?
Mary Matson, Manager of Housing Programs. Through the chair, no, we have not hosted any open houses yet for the community. Just because of COVID and our general reopening, we haven't had that opportunity, but that's something we can definitely pick back and look at, especially with the summer months coming up. We do have barbecues planned for the residents, and we are looking at, like when we had openings, the SPCA did host some sessions at Marlene Ave, and we did have surrounding residents from Riverside Gardens and Winston Court attend there. So we do have other members of the community, but we can definitely look at additional opportunities.
And do you maintain a connection relationship with the Eagle Place Neighborhood Association?
Through the chair, we don't, but we can definitely look at doing that.
Yeah. And lastly, Mr. Chair, I'm asking these questions because I very much want this program in this facility to be a great success. And it's a part of the program. It's a part of the reality of this facility that, we got to pay attention to and also include that in what it is we need to be doing to ever improve the program and the facility. And kudos, great stories in terms of the impact it's having on those who lived there since it opened. And yeah, that does really help us to know from those who lived there and have benefited from the program what it's meant to them in their lives. And that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next, we have Councillor Antosky in the queue. And then Councillor Walt, I know you just put your hand down, but I wonder if maybe after Councillor Howes, you could speak a little bit to if there has been any, from your point of view as a councillor in that ward, a decrease in sort of negative comments or negative interactions or negative perceptions about the space. But Councillor Antosky, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to probably Mary, I think. So we heard some conversation about transition. And I'm wondering, what does transition look like? How is it determined when someone is ready to transition, and where do they typically transition? It sounds like there's a couple of different paths, but I'd like to understand a little bit more about what happens with their success and where they go with that success.
Through the chair, thank you so much for that question. We've been really looking at trying to not just streamline, but optimize the transition experience for every single client that comes through Marlene Avenue. So one of the recent changes we made in the first quarter of this year was to ensure that a tenant support coordinator who welcomes a client into Marlene Ave when they first start remains with them throughout their whole journey. The optimal transition experience, what it looks like is a person needs to be stable at Marlene Ave for at least 12 months before we even consider starting to talk about a plan to move them to a different type of housing situation. So stability looks like that. They have a confidence in paying their rent on time, making sure that their own needs are met. They have supports in place that they can access even after they leave Marlene Avenue. And that's when the conversation starts between the tenant support coordinator and the client on what they want their transition to look like. We do have spaces over at Winston Court where clients who choose to move to Winston Court can transition into. However, a lot of other clients are looking at moving into the community. So then we look at different rent supplements, portable housing benefits that can support them as they exit. We want to see a strong transition plan, and it's really built around all of the client's individual needs. So for some folks, this might look like after 12 months, they're ready to move and we initiate that plan. For other folks, it's some difficult conversations saying, you know what, not just yet, please address these issues. And those are clearly identified between the tenant support coordinator and the client. And then we review whether or not they're ready to move on. At the end of the day, it is self-determination. So some clients will choose to move on to other residences, even though it's not fully supported by the team. However, for the ones who are participating and are supported by the team, the transition is quite smooth. We try to ensure that once they move, they have regular contact with their assigned tenant support coordinator. They can access the supervisor at any time. We have folks who have transitioned out of Marlene Ave over 6 months ago who still call back and just to touch base, just to get an update from their tenant support coordinator, let them know how they're doing, come back to say hi. So we want to make it as seamless as possible. With every transition, we learn something new and then we try and do better the next time.
You have time for one more quick one, Councillor Antosky.
Thank you. I had a follow-up. Thank you. So if we transition to, for instance, Winston Court, frankly, that's an area that's not been without its problems, although I have not heard a lot about it recently. So what have we done to augment the services there to support the success that someone has gained through Marlene? You know, are we making sure that we don't backtrack when we do that transition?
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, absolutely. What we have done is every single tenant support coordinator has a schedule and they are on site at Winston Court once a week. So every single individual tenant support coordinator. With that, we do have tenant support coordinators at Winston Court 3 days out of the week right now. And so any person who has or who is part of the Live Well program, they can access a tenant support coordinator. They know their schedules and they can come speak to someone without an appointment, without any necessity. We are looking at wraparound supports at Winston Court as well. So as some community partners like the Brant County Health Unit are in at Winston Court on a regular basis to provide the programming and the additional information that people are looking for, and they can just access right there.
Terrific. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. I misspoke earlier. Councillor McCreary has a question. He's in the room, so he gets dibs.
I don't have a question. We're in debate, right?
Yes, you have your 4-minute speaking opportunity.
I want to thank the folks for coming today. Provides some degree of vindication for us. We believed in the program to begin with. We made some grievous errors at the outset and things went south on us. We fixed that thanks to the dedication of our staff. And it's just delightful to be able to see folks come here today to show us that we're on the right track. Okay. And you know, it's something we've believed all along. We can provide, with our assistance, we can provide better life experiences for folks, right? But we also believe, and I think we heard a bit of that today, that we're saving lives too, right? And there's probably some people that wouldn't be with us if it weren't for the dedication of our staff and the commitment of our councils. Keep up the good work. Now, with respect to the report that's before us, excuse me, there is one thing I'd like to ask of staff. You've provided us with stats with respect to incidents, but you have not provided us with the definitions for those incidents. So I wonder if you might be able to put that in a memo and provide that to us, okay?
I believe actually there is a supplemental at the bottom of the report.
I haven't seen it. What page is that?
So through the chair, if I may, there is an appendix A, the definitions to the incident types.
Appendix A.
So for example, one of the big numbers on the support, you look through, or the minor, and it's just about masking.
Sorry, I see that.
Right,
Yeah, okay.
things like that.
So the categorization of the other thing I wanted to ask was the categorization of tenant support and medical with respect to incidents. Is there a reason why we encapsulate that in a single stat? I wouldn't want to think that those are incidents.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Does staff have a response for that?
Through this chair, thank you. That's a very good question. These stats are from the contracted security company. So this is how they stat every single incident that they have. So we came up with the categories to try and categorize them the most appropriate as possible.
They work for us, right?
They do work for us, yes.
Yes. So perhaps
Through the chair? Through the chair?
Perhaps we could give them direction to maybe provide us with two reports, one that actually represents incidents and the other that represents positive interactions and medical conditions.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
Yeah,
So.
through the chair, that's no problem.
Yeah, thanks very much. And again, thanks to you folks for coming. Keep up the good work, and you'll get through this.
Next, we have Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm a relatively new member of this committee, and I just wanted to say that the first 30 minutes of this meeting was very valuable to me, to hear, real life stories, and I genuinely appreciate the folks who came in, shared their stories, and it is making me think about kind of the bigger picture about the understanding of our communities related to social services. And I think for some people that live in our communities and pay the taxes, I think they hear the words social services and they don't always know what that means. They think it's about this and they think it's about that. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for us to improve the knowledge of the good works of social services through some communication with appropriate sensitivity. Mayor Davis earlier used the word success, and we've heard some success stories today, and I think I'd like to think there's an opportunity to both improve understanding and also to send a message of hope out to our the residents of our communities. So my question to staff is there any opportunity to turn some of this information, some of these case studies into more of a public facing story, good news story that can be shared?
So through the chair, we can definitely work with our communications team and see what venues we can explore to share the messaging of success and, more importantly, understanding the community and the social services that we do provide. So yes, we'll reach out to communications and work through that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd just like to add the two different times in this agenda package, we had the participant breakdowns and the context for the success, but also the context for how this works. I think that's very helpful for us. And I do think it would be helpful as a public facing document more so, but I think it's even very helpful for us. Many of us have sat on here for a long time, but to hear the context as you see it as staff and as residents see it as, with their lived experience, I think it's so important to get that beyond just the statistics, to have that narrative and the context. So very, very helpful. Councillor Wall, I sort of voluntold you to come speak, but I hope you have good stuff to say.
I had nothing but good things to say. It's just, this one hits really close to home. It was a facility like Marlene Ave that helped me when I was homeless. So to hear the stories from people in our community who this facility has helped makes me want to build a facility like this over and over and over and over again until we've helped everyone who needs the help. So I'm 100% in support of this report, and the courage that it took to come and delegate in front of this committee, it's just inspiring. And I'm sorry, I'm trying not to be emotional, which is why I put my hand down. You asked me to comment on the impact in the neighborhood. So Marlene Ave was the first conflict that I really faced as a city council when I was elected, because it seemed like everybody wanted a facility like this to exist, but nobody wanted this facility to exist in their backyard. And that's a really complicated thing. How can you be told you have to help these people, but do it somewhere else? So the decision was made before I came onto this council to put this there. And then I had to deal with the angry neighbors. And then, you know, I look at it and I'm trying to zoom out like a helicopter view. One of the number one things that I deal with as an elected official in this community is neighbor disputes. Somebody's calling me because Bill's tree is dropping nuts in his backyard, or somebody's parking on my boulevard, or somebody, whatever. So have there been conflict? Have there been neighbor disputes? Absolutely there has. I mean, if you put a bunch of people in a building, any apartment complex or townhouse complex next to single family residences, you're going to run into those kind of things. But our staff have done an absolutely magnificent job working with the people who are living in that facility to explain that, you know, you have a responsibility to be a good neighbor. And if you're not a good neighbor, then facilities like this are not going to be able to exist because no one's going to allow it to happen. COVID's been weird because of the lockdown. So I want to say, like, if there was a barometer on this, it was off the scale when it opened, and then COVID hit and everything kind of shut down. So I don't really have anything to compare it to, but I do know that it seems that the neighborhood is much more accepting of this because of the people who are living there and how respectful of neighbors that they are, because of the security that are there on site, because of the staff that are there on site. And without getting too emotional about it, I am just so thankful to hear that this place is doing its job. And I will, in my time remaining on council, do everything I can to support more projects like this. And long after I'm done on council, I will be there to advocate for projects like this, because again, they save lives. So I do have a question for staff now that I've done that. Thanks. One of the things that hit me so passionately, I think it was Taylor who spoke, he mentioned how important it is to build the rapport with staff members, and how having these people who you rely on and depend on to see and to build this relationship. So I was wondering what the staff turnover at Marlene Ave is like. And then ultimately, like, I know we can't really control how long somebody works at a place, or, you know, everybody's looking to move up the corporate ladder and stuff. But for the staff that are there, are they, is it intended to be a long-term position? Are they there to kind of stay for the entire term, or?
Steph?
Through the chair, thank you for that question, Councillor. Right now, all of the staff are on temporary contracts because the program was a pilot at this point in time. The intention is that if this report passes, that permanent positions will be posted, and this is intended to be a permanent position. With regards to your question on staff turnover, we have had staff who have been in these positions since the beginning of the program in January 2021 when the city did take over. We have experienced difficulties in filling temporary positions because of the temporary nature of the contracts. We do require a very high level of service from the staff that are on site. So we do expect a high standard of performance, and they do have to come with a lot of qualifications to get that caliber of staff. It is very hard on a temporary basis. However, with permanent positions, I am quite confident that we could fill them and have very little movement.
So I will comment, I guess, on that and just say that if this program is intended to help people, then anything that we can do to make people want to stay in the program, to want to be there, to want to be a part of it, including making sure that the people that they come to rely on are going to be there the next day. It only takes one change or one thing to just be different that knocks somebody off their rhythm. So what can this committee do, or what?
You'll have to wait. You're at time, but we can come back to you after we get to Councillor Sluss.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sluss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things, and I guess it would be through you to staff. Is there been thought given on how we share this this success with the broader community? It's a difficult sell when people don't understand what's being done and how it's impacting folks in a positive way. And you only ever get the negative side, or usually you get the negative side. Is there some way that is personally sensitive and yet gets that story out that things are really being improved by what we're doing down there? That I don't know how to put this, but to share with the broader community that yes, there's been bumps on the road. Yes, it's a lot of money. Yes, it's all those things, but it's doing good. And how do we get that out? I've been on social services for a long time, and this has probably been the most enlightening meeting that I've attended as a social services committee member. It's enlightening and it's reassuring that we're doing what we should be doing. That what we're capable of doing is doing good for other folks, and that's really what social services is. So I would like to somehow, and I'm not a communications expert, but there has to be a way to share this good news in a positive way and in a real way to the folks that pay the bills. So I would like staff to give that some serious consideration on how we get that out to the broader community. And then I guess secondly, a question to staff. In a perfect world, if money was not a concern, how many more units would we have to create to solve the problem?
The staff, we're saying 506 here at the Horseshoe.
Well, that's not this problem. That's another problem. But they're all problems. But I'd like to know that the folks that are really struggling out there in a personal way, there's a lot of them. Go downtown, you'll see them. They need help. Do we have a handle on that? And can you give real numbers on how that problem could be overcome?
Sure. Yeah, I was just stalling for staff to chat a little bit. Yeah, staff, I think, are ready now.
Thank you. Tricia Givens, Director of Housing and Homelessness. Thank you for the question. So that is something we are currently working on. So using our data, our HIFIS data to identify the existing homeless population. But I can tell you, since I've been here over the past few months, the need for additional transitional or housing with support is definitely needed. So that is something we are currently evaluating, and we'll be coming back to council when we can with that additional data, which will also be on the website as well. So I don't have a specific number, but I'm flagging we see that and we're evaluating that, and we'll come back with some real information for consideration.
Excellent.
If I could just go further with that,
you have a minute.
Are we talking a lot, or are we talking not too many, or just a boatload?
So through the chair, if I may, interestingly enough, Susan and I were looking at some statistics for a different report the other day. And one of the articles that was published actually spoke to 1% of the adult population, so not including our seniors, require some level of support. So if that's an indicator of the volume, I don't want to say it's a boatload, but definitely there's a need for this level of service, and then different levels of service. So, intense service, as you see at Marlene Ave, lesser service as Winston Court. And I think we need to see it more broadly across the community, both in the county and the city. So that's just kind of one article that we pulled the other day, but it did speak volumes.
Well, three medium boats is, I think, what we're hearing. So are there any first-time speakers who'd still like to interject before we get back to Councillor Wall? Okay, one thing I'll mention, and it's so important that we had people who utilize the service come in and speak, but it's also really important for folks around this table and the digital table to understand that user experience is really important, because these folks will end up telling other people in their community, our community, but a very, very specific community, this is a safe place, this is an okay place, go when you get the opportunity. If we don't have positive user experiences, then what happens is it gets a reputation and people don't accept the service. And we've seen that happen with different housing projects where it's like, no, I'd rather stay out on the street than use this service or this program or even this housing because of the negative experiences I hear, right? We hear people say, well, how come we have a meal program every day, every meal? How come people don't use it? Well, sometimes people have really negative, dangerous experiences at some programs. I'm not going to name any specific ones because it's more about interactions, or staff treat them, or volunteers might treat people rudely. And to hear the opposite, that this is a safe place, means that as people transition in and out, they will say to other folks, hey, this is really a good, safe place that helped me. When you have the opportunity, come. If we build Marlene Avenue B and C and D, or in other places, we'll name Marlene after our staff, but then we'll have that opportunity to have folks say, you know what, these Brantford and Brant offer these really good services that actually do work and help. And that'll be really, really a positive for getting people not using emergency services, but using supportive services and then independence. So that's all I had to say. But Councillor Wall.
Thanks, Councillor LaFerrier. You're doing a great job, by the way. Okay. Sorry. I wanted to just say a couple of things. So first and foremost was obviously the need for facilities like this. And I hope that we can kind of expedite whatever our plans are, only in the sense that sometimes when people are in this vulnerable state or they desperately need help, you get one chance. You get one chance where they reach out and they seek help, or they are encouraged by friends or family to seek help. And if they seek help and there's a lineup, or there's a delay, or they can't get an appointment that day, or they can't get in somewhere, you may never get that chance back. And I really want to live in a community that if somebody wants help, the help is available to them. No different than any other service that we offer. The second thing was, I wondered if there was an opportunity for residents who live in the community to be able to provide anonymous feedback. I don't know if that's something that's already offered at the facility, but I just think that sometimes when you're dealing with care and treatment that is provided at Marlene and living conditions, that, you know, providing feedback may be complicated. And I mean, one of the delegates was asked today about, like, you know, what could you do to make it better? And I mean, when it's great, but the ability to provide feedback. And then the last thing would be about a chronic issue in our community is helping people who others may feel don't want to be helped, or either don't want help. And I would argue that it's not that they don't want help, or that they don't need help, or that they're turning down help. There's just so many conflicting things. And I wonder if there's anything that the people who this program have helped could do to influence us so that we can help more people, just by providing like lived experience and I like the stories that were shared here today. Because how do you convince somebody who's been living on the streets for 4 or 5 years that it could be better? Or, you know, maybe they're just so disenfranchised with, oh, sure it is, yeah, but you're going to take away my freedom, or you're going to, you know what I mean? And then the question I didn't have enough time to ask, what can this council and the county council, sorry, Brantford and Brant County Council do to support full-time staff at Marlene Ave? What do you need from us?
We have 3 questions. 1, is there an opportunity for anonymous feedback? 2, is there an opportunity for almost peer ambassadorship? And 3, full-time work. What's the mechanism to support that?
Gosh, you're good. Thank you.
So through the chair, I can answer the first question for sure. The opportunity for feedback, we do administer the quality of life survey. It is completely anonymous, and only those tenants who request help from their tenant support coordinator are even identified. However, their names are not on the survey. So by the time the data gets to my level, I have no idea who has provided the feedback. So we try and make it as transparent as possible and give the opportunity for open and honest feedback from the people who are utilizing our services.
So through the chair, just on the ambassador program, as you can appreciate, the program somewhat new, even though we've been at it for a little while. So we're learning and growing on this journey every day. And that's a fantastic idea, to take those opportunities of those who've had the success, the lived experiences, to support those that may not be ready yet or may not be sure, to work with them and create a bit of an ambassador program. So we'll take that back and look at what that might look like. And then just on the full time, I'm not sure I totally understood the question. But having permanent FTEs for that consistency would definitely be something, as you can see from the report, that I think would support staff to continue the work that's been done to date.
Thank you. And I think CAO Hutchings wants to speak to this as well.
I think it's, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Councillor Wall's question, what can we do? This is a very pivotal point, Councillor Wall. Obviously, we had the troubles back a few summers ago, which everybody remember. We clarified, we straightened that up. We dealt with the contract. We brought in our own staff. We did that as an experiment. We're here now at a very pivotal point where we're saying, we want to continue with our own staff. Those staff are all on temporary contracts. If council approves this today, we will firm up those contracts and make those employment relations more stable than they have, because this has been a pilot project for the last year and a half. So this is a very pivotal point for us as staff to firm up these positions. So that's to answer your question. That's what staff need.
That's the answer I was looking for. That's what I thought I understood, but sometimes I need it spelled out for me. I really appreciate that, Brian. Thank you.
Okay, any other second opportunities to speak in the room, online? Well, if discussion is complete, I will now call a vote. All those in favor? And I believe that carries unanimously. Any opposed? Great, that has been carried unanimously. Congratulations and thank you so much. Okay, well, I appreciate it. We'll move to item 6.4, I believe, which is the OW report. Let me just get out here. Ontario Works quarterly report update for Q1. Financial impact, none. We have Anthony and Niket, who are both virtual, to answer any questions. So Councillor House, you separate this, but I'll see if anybody in the room has questions first. Mayor Davis?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to staff. Got a question. And I often hear from those in the business community that we've got a labor shortage, and it's reflected in our employment rates. Some of the most historically low employment rates in decades. I look at the data on the trend line, and it looks like the caseload's increasing. Is there, like, it doesn't seem that doesn't seem consistent with what I'm hearing from business, and that there are many job opportunities. So why is it that the caseload's increasing?
Who will speak to this? Anthony or Susan?
Yes, good morning. Susan Evenden, Director of Family and Income Stability. And through the chair, thank you for the opportunity to follow that amazing report. This is a bit of an anticlimax, I think, at this point. But this is definitely a real head scratcher that we're always trying to explain as best we can. The first part of the explanation, as this committee is aware, is that we as a department now have much less local influence over the connection of our social assistance recipients to employment opportunities. Because of the provincial transition, we now have a very prescribed process to follow with everyone who enters social assistance and those that we're already working on. We have a provincial assessment that we complete that tells us whether or not the person should be moved forward to employment services. They subsequently also complete an assessment, and not everyone makes it through the assessment because it can take a couple of contacts. And at the conclusion of that assessment, the person could potentially be placed in employment. And we have certainly made efforts to encourage the connection between Employment Ontario service providers. There are 3 locally, with our own economic development departments to try and as we had done in the past, to try and match up the skills and abilities of unemployed individuals, including social assistance recipients, which is our main concern, to the needs of employers, because we know there is an acute need for labor out there. And truly, it does need to be a partnership with employers, because employers also do need to recognize that the labor pool that they're engaging with now may need some additional accommodations or support within the workplace. So I guess the short answer to the question is that we are continuing to work away at helping people resolve challenges so that they can become employment ready. But the placement piece is now really no longer in our hands.
So what do you suggest we do to try and get that improved?
I do, through the chair, I do think, again, through the city and county's economic development functions, I think that the key there is to continue to encourage and enable those connections so that they're aware of the employers and working closely with employers. We've seen models in the past where that can be very successful, sometimes even with specialized skills training, which Employment Ontario has money for, to help people be able to, do the jobs that are out there, which are becoming a little more technical and high skill in nature sometimes. So I think that's other than advocacy, which certainly was something at the outset of this process that came through this committee. I think now it's on the ground. The players need to get together at the table and work on some solutions.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Steve, I believe you're next. And then anybody else, please just raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was almost identical to Kevin or Mayor Davis's, but I'm gonna come at it. I'm gonna rephrase it in a slightly different way to staff. My focus is the gap between people that need greater income and places that need employees, and the staff's given a fulsome answer to Mayor Davis's question this morning. I think from a lens of today, of how it works today. So I'm going to curve this into the lens of the future. Does staff have anything else they would like to say related to how our governance could help influence closing this gap in the future? Are you seeing other municipalities with any success techniques? Just are there any other comments from the lens of where we could go in the future to close that gap?
Okay, thank you. Steph?
Through the chair, I think that for myself, I've worked in sort of labor adjustment in social assistance for more than 30 years now. And so this has always been a challenge, in terms of bringing, what I spoke about earlier, bringing everyone to the table. I think that that members of this committee, as members of their councils, do have an opportunity to, particularly when you're speaking with employers, right? I think that there's a large focus right now generally on diversity in workplaces, diversity in workforce, and sometimes that diversity is not as inclusive of people coming from low income situations. And so, the opportunity to educate, the opportunity to encourage employers to look at their own workplaces, what they can offer to make it more feasible for people coming out. And I think that right now, and in the report, we talk about, and we're having to work with Employment Ontario to help them understand the experience of people who are living in the type of poverty that people on social assistance, especially Ontario Works, are, right? That every day, a small thing that people with means would be able to overcome in order to make it into work. If you're coming out of a situation where, you're living on social assistance, you can't problem solve that because you don't have credit. You don't have, necessarily friends and family that can jump in and lend you money if you don't have money to repair your car, or just some of those tangible things. So I think that moving forward, it's harnessing, it's a great moment right now to improve outcomes for the people we serve, because employers are never going to be more willing to look at different employee profiles and in order to fill their vacancies, right? So I think that through your economic development department staff, through your own conversations, and also through, really pushing the provincial system and our EO service providers as well, to work together that's the only way the future labor shortages, I think, are really going to be resolved, is by including everyone who possibly can participate in the workforce to whatever extent. Persons with disabilities who may only be able to work 10 or 15 hours a week. Employers are going to have to get creative, and I think you have an opportunity to get that message to them.
Okay, that's time. I'll check to see if there's a second speaker. But are there any first-time speakers who'd like to go? I just want to ask a quick follow-up before we get back to Steve if he has another question. But we look at that program that they came to present a couple of years ago, and I volunteered for them, speaking for them many times over the intervening years. And they're more focused on logistics training, and you get 2 college credits. And but is there an opportunity to expand something like that to not just look at logistics, but look at other areas of employment that are in need right now, and not just the warehousing sector? Because I know it's been really successful, and it seems to be taking the point of view of, yes, it's intensive, but we provide transportation and lunch, but also life skills training so people get jobs and keep them, and sort of professionalize. Is there an opportunity to expand that into other sectors?
Through the chair, again, sort of a more appropriate question for a joint table with Employment Ontario and perhaps the Workforce Planning Board. The Workforce Planning Board does have a role, and they do a good job of identifying, and they actually were the ones that I think facilitated that program. As one example, I think there's been a lot of efforts with the college sector around food preparation, right? Lots of vacancies in hospitality, food service, line cooks, and the thing that's been a challenge there, and again, this is where working together can be very useful, is just finding or creating a kitchen space that would be suitable to, train 10 or 15 people at a time. So there is, those kind of sector partnerships are amazing ideas. And again, just need the coordination to come off the ground between all the partners, employer, trainer, and the employer, the employment services operators.
Maybe we need to make a call to the community health center about their community kitchen, and one of the colleges about theirs too. But okay, thank you. Steve, did you have a follow-up? I don't see any first-time speakers in the queue.
Just very quickly, I do appreciate the responses, and yeah, it's an interesting challenge, because I know that even before the pandemic, when I was involved in some of our economic development work, in the county, I talked to a factory manager, and he said, I can't get people to come to work 5 days in a row. And then knowing that there's people in our community who are living well below the poverty line, it's a heartbreaking combination. And so what I'm taking away from staff's responses to my question and Mayor Davis's question is, twice I heard the words, we have to make sure that everybody's comes to the table and kind of works together on trying to solve this. And I just, as we move into the future, perhaps, we are going to have to make sure that table meeting happens. I think we're going to have to keep pushing more and more steps, because there are many people in our communities that need more income, and hopefully we can connect the dots to make that happen at the table, so to speak. So thank you.
Thank you. And any other discussion? Councillor McCurry.
Chair, thank you. I'm wondering where this table is. Could someone enlighten me as to where the table is that's been discussed?
Slightly facetious question, or do you want to?
Well, it's slightly facetious, but there's been some discussion about players needing to get together at the table and work on solutions, and that's probably a good idea. How are we going to act on that?
Maybe that's something you and I should take to the chamber, as the chamber delegates. But does staff have anything on that?
Through the chair, not specifically, other than, the question that was asked was, sort of as members of council, opposed to coming from a staff perspective, what can we do around this? And respecting that members of council are in conversation with all sorts of stakeholders in the community, that's a starting point, right? To say, hey, we should get together and bring everybody together using the role. And we've seen that successfully done with a lot of other challenges in our communities. So if this challenge has a high, it has high importance, has high value, then I think that was the suggestion that was.
So is that a role that staff could take? Is that a recommendation that staff would make, that we become the catalyst in this process? We being, the corporations?
Sure. Does staff want to maybe take that as an opportunity for potentially a report in the future, or?
Yes, through the chair. I think that we would work with our colleagues in economic development. And, it's a little, I think what I'm trying to say is it's now become a little bit out of the lane of Ontario Works and the Ontario Works program because of the shift. And I think that we do need to be conscious that, this committee will recall at the time of that shift that a significant amount of funding from our provincial service contract was also transferred to the Ministry of Training, Skills Development. So I think that's also a consideration.
Thank you. So let's take that into consideration. It's all well and fine for us to sit around in here and talk about coming to tables and so on, but unless we're prepared to take action and perhaps be the catalyst in these relationships between the province of Ontario, local corporations, and people who actually want to get back into the workforce, it's just words.
No, that's fair. And I'm actually writing down here, ECDEV, chambers, transit, council, workforce planning, province, employers. That sounds like a nice table to set if we're able to in the future. Okay, any other discussion before we move forward? Then we still have quorum. We've lost a couple councillors, but we will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Excellent. There are no resolutions or notices of motion, so I will call for an adjournment, but let us all know that we will be proceeding to the Brantford Local Housing Corporation Board of Directors meeting. The main event, yes. I will call this meeting to order, the second meeting now. Roll call, it's been taken. We still have quorum, as I just said. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Oh, we just lost two more folks. Do we still have quorum? Yes. Yes, okay. Well, that'll be quick. No declarations of pecuniary interest? Thanks again. No presentations or delegations. So for items of consideration, can I get a mover and seconder to place all items on the floor? Moved by Councillor McCurry, seconded by Councillor Vanderstelt. Is there anything anybody would like to separate? Councillor Miller?
Well, I have a question on the main report.
On which? At 5.2?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we will separate that. Okay, any others? So I'll call a vote on all of the items not separated. All those in favor? So moved. Okay, so any discussion on 5.2? Anybody from inside the council chambers first? Councillor McCurry.
Sure, thank you. With respect to the day-to-day maintenance work orders, is there a reason why they've declined?
Tricia Givens, Director of Housing and Homelessness, through the chair. The numbers, the specific reason for decline is we're catching up on things that didn't happen through COVID. So the numbers aren't quite reflective. So we're sort of playing catch up now that things are opening up.
Excellent. And secondly, Tricia, we're doing windows at Winston. Now I recall a number of years ago when we had door security, folks would come in through the windows to couch surf in their friends' apartments. Is that still occurring with the new windows?
Thank you, through the chair. So the new windows will hopefully, no, that won't be happening. And in fact, they'll be such that the air conditioned units won't be going in into those windows. We've set up an alternative for the air conditioning, so it will reduce people using windows as access points.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else in person? Okay, I assume Councillor Miller has a question. If he separated
You
it.
assume correct. Yeah, you assume correct, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question about the rent arrears. I see they're going up again. It seemed to be a big jump. Or am I reading that incorrectly? Is that a fairly big jump in a short period of time? And do we know why that's the case? And I'll just say I understand staff has been working hard to reduce that. And I think they've been doing good. It's been trending well. And all of a sudden now it seems to be going back up rather quickly. So I just wondered if staff could maybe comment on that, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you for the question and through the chair. So we've shifted our vision in terms of housing stabilization. So working with tenants to support them and maintain their tenancy. So that's where you see some increase in the arrears where we're stabilizing individuals, supporting them, putting payment plans in place. So that's one of the reasons, well, that's the main reason there's a change. So instead of immediately going towards eviction for arrears, we're working with them alongside them. And this is a program that we've just initiated. So we're hoping to stabilize it over time, but there's been a shift and that's the reason.
Okay, I appreciate the answer. And I do know that, yeah, with the tenant board, there's quite a backlog there. So thank you for the information.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Approved. We have no resolutions, no notice of motion, so I will adjourn this meeting and some of us will proceed to the Brantford Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation Board of Directors meeting. And I'll turn the chair over to Mayor Davis and all of the county councillors, all two of us that are left, or three of us that are left are excused.
All right, we'll now convene as the Brantford Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation Board of Directors. Lisa, the roll call has been taken. I believe we have a quorum.
The roll's been taken.
Right. And any declarations of a conflict of interest that anybody needs to make? Seeing no raised hands, so we'll move into, there's no presentations or delegations, and we have, similar to the last meeting, we have minutes and first quarter reports. So if I can get does anybody want any of those separated for discussion purposes? Seeing no raised hands, if I can get a mover and second or put those items on the floor, moved by Councillor McCurry, seconded by Councillor Vanderstelt. I'll call the vote. Lisa, would you please take the vote? I'll take it. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. That's unanimous. I believe that concludes our business because there's no resolutions, no notices of motion. Meeting adjourned.
Have a good day, everyone.